Search Inside Yourself, featuring Chade-Meng Tan. This evening's event will inaugurate Mindful USC, our new comprehensive university-wide multidisciplinary mindfulness initiative. And I'm so grateful to the many departments and divisions that serve as leaders for Mindful USC, especially the Office of the Provost, the Undergraduate Student Government, the Graduate Student Government, the Academic Senate, the Staff Assembly, the Engelman Health Center, the Center for Excellence in Teaching, the Levin Institute for Humanities and Ethics, the Center for Work and Family Life, the Institute for Integrative Health, the Office of Religious Life, and USC Spectrum. And I'm especially grateful to all of you for being here for this very auspicious event. When I was an undergraduate, I spent a semester living in a Buddhist monastery in Bodh Gaya, India, a small village where the Buddha was enlightened 2,500 years ago. That's where I first encountered mindfulness meditation, and I eagerly embraced it because more than anything else, I wanted to levitate and walk through walls. That never happened, but I'm still trying, so if anyone has any advice, please let me know. That can be another university initiative. Instead, what I did experience with my mindfulness practice were positive health and learning benefits: less stress, more focus, better sleep, increased creativity. Over the last 20 years, millions of Americans have also developed a mindfulness practice. And like yoga, mindfulness has moved away from its spiritual origins and is now considered a mainstream secular practice in the United States. In fact, Time magazine chronicled the meteoric rise of mindfulness meditation in their cover story earlier this year entitled "The Mindful Revolution." Here at USC, on our highly technologized and digitally connected campus, we've noticed that more and more people feel disconnected. And in an age when our students have hundreds of friends online, they tell us that they struggle to develop deep and meaningful interpersonal relationships offline. So Mindful USC is really a wellness initiative for our campus community focused on health and learning outcomes. In this regard, the initiative will focus on three distinct areas: research, teaching, and practice. In 1982, Jon Kabat-Zinn published the first research article on mindfulness. And over the next 20 years, 200 research articles were published, so about 20 a year. Last year alone, 600 research articles were published on mindfulness, so there's been an exponential increase in mindfulness research over the last several years. Accordingly, Mindful USC will highlight and showcase the innovative research on the science of mindfulness being done at the Keck School of Medicine, specifically around the impact of mindfulness on insomnia, substance abuse, and attention deficit disorder. The second component of Mindful USC builds upon a national movement in higher education called contemplative pedagogy. Over the last 2 years, the Center for Excellence in Teaching at USC has hosted a number of workshops to support and promote faculty members using contemplative, reflective, introspective, and meditative methodologies in the classroom. Studies show that such approaches foster the development of the whole person, increasing capacities such as creativity, empathy, compassion, and awareness. We've been surprised by how large and interdisciplinary this faculty group has become, and will continue to host these contemplative pedagogy faculty workshops under the banner of Mindful USC. And the third and most visible component of Mindful USC is practice, or as Allen Iverson would say, we're talking about practice. This semester, we're offering 7 courses on mindfulness and self-compassion that are 5 weeks long each and have a capacity of 50 people for each course, so about 300 people. We were thrilled at the overwhelmingly positive response to these mindfulness courses, and we filled all of our courses within 12 hours of announcing them. We'll continue to offer these courses along with mindfulness-based stress reduction courses every semester. We'll also have a number of drop-in and practice group opportunities on both campuses that meet weekly. Ultimately, the way we envision mindfulness is with 3 components: that it is being aware of the present moment, that it is being open to what is happening in the present moment, and responding without judgment to whatever arises. As a university initiative, Mindful USC is based on the fact that mindfulness practices help us to be aware of ourselves in ways that lead to stress reduction and workplace happiness. They increase attentiveness in the classroom, deepen the quality of teaching and learning, and encourage creativity and innovation. They improve our ability to collaborate effectively, and they enhance physical and mental wellness, and they help us discover the universe right here at the university. To learn more about the science of mindfulness, to sign up for contemplative pedagogy workshops and mindfulness courses, to find all the mindfulness practice groups and drop-in meditation opportunities on campus, and to discover all the public events and programs on mindfulness at USC, please visit the website mindful.usc.edu or email us at mindful@usc.edu. One of the exciting developments with Mindful USC is the student leadership component, which is being spearheaded by our extraordinary undergraduate student leader, Lily Moffitt. I now ask her to join me on stage and say a few words about how students can be involved as mindfulness leaders and ambassadors on campus. So please join me in welcoming Lily Moffitt.
And I'm the leader of the student sector of the Mindful USC initiative. And basically, my role as student leader is I want to spread mindfulness, especially among the students, and to have resources available for you guys if you're interested in becoming more mindful. And right now, actually, we have sessions that are going to start next week for this whole month of mindfulness. And there's 4 weeks of them. So if you did not get a chance to get into the classes, we will have that opportunity available for you. So please like our Facebook page. It's called Mindful USC, very original. And also, if you are interested in becoming a part of the student sector, you can email our email I created today. It's mindfulusc.stu@gmail.com.
I wish I could say that USC was the first university to develop a mindfulness initiative, but the reality is that we're late to the game here. Every Ivy League school already has a mindfulness initiative, so does the University of Oxford. Schools like UCLA and UCSD have long-standing mindfulness research centers. But what differentiates Mindful USC is its ambition and its scope as a university resource. Our audacious goal is to create a culture of mindfulness for the Trojan family through research, teaching, and practice. In this regard, we did not look to other universities for inspiration, but rather to Google, a creative, compassionate corporation that has successfully cultivated a culture of mindfulness on its campus. And in so many ways, Google's trailblazing and visionary approach to mindfulness emerges from the full-mindedness of Chade-Meng Tan, or Meng as his friends call him. Meng is Google's Chief Happiness Officer, and his official title is Jolly Good Fellow at Google, which nobody can deny. We have a lot of fellows and fellowships here at USC, but we really need a Jolly Good Fellow here as well. Meng joined Google in 2000 as a software engineer and as employee number 107. He helped build Google's first mobile search service and headed the team that kept a vigilant eye on Google's search quality. In addition to his work as a Google engineer, Meng is also a personal growth pioneer and first designed Search Inside Yourself as a popular course at Google intended to transform the work and lives of Google employees. Since then, over 2,000 Google employees have completed the Search Inside Yourself course. The course soon evolved into a New York Times best-selling book entitled Search Inside Yourself: The Unexpected Path to Achieving Success, Happiness, and World Peace. This book reveals how to calm your mind on demand and return it to a natural state of happiness, how to deepen self-awareness in a way that fosters self-confidence, how to harness empathy and compassion into outstanding leadership, and how to build highly productive collaborations based on trust and transparent communication. In other words, Search Inside Yourself shows you how to grow inner joy while succeeding at your work, something I know we all wish to accomplish in our lives. As Meng writes, quote, "Some people buy books that teach them to be liked. Others buy books that teach them to be successful. This book teaches you both. You are so lucky." Indeed, we are all so lucky to have Meng with us this evening to kick off Mindful USC. By bringing together the spiritual and the scientific, Meng serves as a signpost to a new consciousness, one that is predicated on the cultivation of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, creative thinking, and loving kindness. Given the fact that Mindful USC would simply not exist without Search Inside Yourself, we all owe Meng a great debt of gratitude for his generosity of time and spirit, and we're all very excited to welcome him to campus today for his first ever visit to USC. I will say that it took me 20 years to to figure out what you can learn in just a few short hours by reading his book. So I strongly recommend that all of you purchase a copy and have Meng personalize it and save yourself 2 decades of searching outside yourself. And now, please join me in giving a warm Trojan welcome to Google's jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny, and the progenitor of search inside yourself, Chade-Meng Tan.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Meng. I have the coolest job description in corporate America. My job description has only 7 words. Enlighten minds, open hearts, create world peace. That's all. I also have the coolest job title in corporate America. My job title is the Jolly Good Fellow, which nobody can deny. Like most things in my career, this started as a joke. Because the highest ranking engineer in Google is called a Google Fellow. And I made a joke. I said, hey, why be a Google Fellow when you can be, I don't know, a Jolly Good Fellow? Right? And people laughed. And my philosophy is that if everybody laughs, that's the right thing to do. So I sent this for printing without telling HR. So I knew that eventually HR has to approve this or not, right? And I expected them to deny it, which is why I put, which nobody can deny. Because it's part of the song, right? He's a jolly good fellow. Ends with, which nobody can deny. So I put it there so that if and when it gets denied, I have a funny story to tell. So either way, I win, right? See, I'm not just good looking, I'm smart too. Turns out that HR had a sense of humor. So they approved this, and it got printed, and it appeared on the front page of the New York Times. So since then, I got stuck with this job title. Speaking of the front page of the New York Times, so this was the first time I was on the front page of the New York Times. It's about an institution called Meng's War, which is this tradition where anybody who's famous who comes to Google must have a picture taken with me, and they go on the wall. Oh, by the way, it says the sex scandal, that's not me. Yeah, that's too much fun even for me. Oh, by the way, I tell all my friends that I'm the only person who has been on the front page of the New York Times 4 times in one day. So how did this begin? This began with this picture. This person called Al Gore came to visit Google. So I need to impress my mom. I mean, I'm Chinese. I need to impress my mom, right? Yes, Chinese people among you know exactly what I mean. So I asked for this picture. And then sometime later, I was sitting in my office, looking out the window, minding my own business. And then I noticed police cars hiding under the trees at the exits. So, oopsie. Too much drama. I was like, See, no drama. Drama. I was like, something's happening. Somebody important is in the building. And then I noticed big men in black suits and dark glasses and earpieces. So I just sat at the lobby waiting for somebody important to show up. Right? And then somebody important showed up. It was President and Mrs. Carter. For those of you too young to remember, he used to be President of the United States. Oh, by the way, like how fleeting fame is, there's actually somebody who asked me, who is this person? Like for real, like who is he? I said, I don't know. He only used to be President of the United States. So anyway, I asked for this picture. So I put 2 pictures on my wall, outside my office. And once you have these 2 pictures, it snowballs and it becomes a thing, right? So it becomes a tradition. So here are some people on that wall, like people you might know. For example, you see President Clinton and her husband Bill. Oh, by the way, there was a funny joke. Al Gore was once asked, when Al Gore was vice president, somebody asked him, what does it feel like to be the second most powerful person in the United States? And Al Gore says, you have to ask her yourself. So back when I was an engineer, engineers in Google have something called 20% time. 20% of the time, we are allowed to do whatever we want. So I spent that time creating a curriculum for emotional intelligence based on mindfulness. And I called it Search Inside Yourself, again as a joke. And again, the joke stuck. Right? So it's called Search Inside Yourself. I wrote it up into a book. It became a best-selling book. And the best thing about this book, in my opinion, is the back cover. Because on the back cover, you see endorsements by the Dalai Lama and Jimmy Carter. You see, my friends, this is how you know it's a good book. Because what are the chances that Jimmy Carter and the Dalai Lama are both wrong at the same time? So, Search Inside Yourself is about emotional intelligence. And that leads to a question. What is emotional intelligence? I'm going to answer the question with a parable. It is a parable of a man on the horse. And it's a man sitting on the horse, and the horse going slowly on the street. And then there's a guy standing on the street. And the guy standing on the street asks the guy on the horse, say, hey, rider, where are you going? And the rider says, how would I know? You should be asking the horse. Duh. Which sounds silly, right? However, it turns out that this is silliness that we engage in every day. Because the horse represents our emotional mind, and the rider represents our thinking mind. And we have this belief that the emotional mind takes the thinking mind where it wants to go, and the thinking mind has no control. Right? The horse takes the rider wherever he wants to go, and the rider is just there literally for the ride. Sometimes it gets worse. Sometimes it feels like this. When you have strong emotions, anger, hatred, jealousy, and so on, it feels like the horse dragging you. So my friends, I have good news. The good news is that you can go from this to this. And look cool. You can go from skillessness with emotions to skillfulness with emotions. That's the good news. What's the bad news? There is no bad news. With me, there's only good news and better news. Which is why people love me. Not just because I'm so good looking. Oh, by the way, I keep saying very good looking. It's a psychological experiment. You know, if you lie about something often enough, it becomes true, right? So I'm just seeing where the tipping point is. Like after 20 exposures, it tipped. And say, hey, Ming is very good looking. I don't know why. So 20 exposures. The better news is that you can go from this to this. It can go from skilllessness to skillfulness to mastery. Mastery over emotions with training. So, what is emotional intelligence? I'm going to give you a scientific definition, which is this. It is the ability to monitor one's own and others' feelings and emotions, to discriminate among them, and most importantly, to use this information to guide one's thinking and actions. I'm going to give you a shorter and more important definition, which is that emotional intelligence is a collection of emotional skills. And that's important. Why? Because all skills are trainable. Therefore, if EI, emotional intelligence, if EI is only a collection of emotional skills, then EI must be trainable. Good news. From our work, from Search Inside Yourself, we found that to be true. It is highly trainable. And again, there's no bad news. The better news is that it turns out we can train it in a very short amount of time, 7 weeks, 50 hours of training. That's all it takes. So the thing about emotional intelligence is that it turns out it cannot be learned. It can only be trained. And it can be trained, why? Because it turns out, and by the way, this is a fairly recent discovery, it turns out that the brain has a feature called neuroplasticity, which is the realization or the discovery that what we think, what we do, and most importantly, what we pay attention to, changes the function and structure of the brain, even for adults, even for engineers. It's that powerful. And it's because of this feature of the brain, which is why we can train emotional intelligence in the brain. So how do you do it? How do you train emotional intelligence? It turns out you can do this in 3 easy steps. And step 1 is attention training. So you might wonder, whoa, what has attention got to do with emotional intelligence? Right? Doesn't make sense, right? When I say attention here, I mean something very specific. I mean the attentional ability to bring your mind to a state that is calm and clear, and to do it on demand. Or in other words, in shorter phrase, to calm the mind on demand. Sort of like this, illustrated by this picture. So what good does this do? If you have this ability, which by the way is highly trainable, the first benefit of this is leadership. Imagine you're in a meeting room. Imagine you're working, you graduated, you got a job, you're working, and imagine there's a crisis, right? Everybody in the meeting room is panicking, and you alone have the ability to calm the mind on demand, and therefore you alone have the ability to think clearly under fire. What happens? Everybody in the room looks at you and they think, this person is a leader. And they feel that way because why? Because this is leadership. Leadership, among other things, leadership is the ability to think under fire. Right? And so next year's promotion cycle, guess who gets considered for promotion? You get considered because they will say, oh, that person, he's a leader or she's a leader. Right? So this is the first benefit already. It gets better than this. The next benefit is something that is described by this person called Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And that space lies your freedom and power to choose your response. When you gain the ability to calm the mind on demand, what that does for you is it gives you consistent and, maybe not consistent, but reliable access to that space between stimulus and response, thereby giving you choice, power, freedom. Freedom, my friends, from this one simple skill. So this skill is life-changing. And this is the foundation of emotional intelligence. If you're able to do this, then you can acquire the other emotional skills. So this is great. The next question is how, right? I mean, yeah, okay, it's fine. How do I acquire this skill? The answer is embarrassingly simple. It's so simple, you might be wondering why you're paying for this. You didn't pay for this, did you? Okay, good. The answer is with a practice called mindfulness. Oh. And mindfulness is defined as this. It's defined as paying attention, but not just paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and most importantly, non-judgmentally. This is mindfulness. Is anybody game for 10-second exercise? Okay? Very simple, that even I can do. 10 seconds, you bring attention to the process of breathing, whatever that means to you. And if you want something more specific, bring attention to the sensation at the nose or at the belly, whichever you prefer. And every time your attention wanders away, you bring it back for 10 seconds. That's all. Sounds good? Okay, 10 seconds beginning now. Okay, time's up. So this is the part of my talk where Varun withdraws all his praises for me and asks for his money back. And the reason he's asking for his money back is, if I was in the audience, I'll be asking a question. And it is called the WTF question. For those of you who do not know what WTF stands for, it stands for, what is happening? Yes, true. And the WTF question is, how can this possibly do me any good? Right? So, whoa, I attend to my breath, it wanders away, I bring it back. How could this benefit me in any way? Doesn't even make sense. So, to answer this question, let's pretend that nobody in this room knows anything about physical fitness. And pretend we all just did one bicep curl, like this. It should be asking the same WTF question, which is, wait. I take a heavy object, I bring it up and bring it down. How could this possibly do me any good? Right? If you, however, know about physical fitness, if you know about exercise, you know the answer, which is that every time you do one of this, you strengthen the muscles a little bit more. So if you do a lot of this, the first thing that happens is you acquire a quality called strength. And when you acquire a quality called strength, first benefit is that you acquire the ability to do things you never imagined doing before. For example, you can carry heavy stuff, right? And for the ladies among you, you find that you can throw out the boyfriend. The boyfriend says, take out the trash, dear. Okay, throw him out. Yeah, guys who get thrown out tonight, you know why. Besides throwing out the boyfriend, something else happened, which is more important, which is that if you do a lot of this, you also acquire something called health and fitness, right? Physical health and fitness. And when you have physical health and fitness, something profound happens. The first thing that happens is you find that you have more energy and you have fewer sick days, and that alone makes you more successful, right? Because you're more productive. You can study better. So just that alone, you become more successful. And you look good in the mirror. Right? So I know my experience every day. And you feel a sense of wellness. And you feel happy. And you feel great all the time. So if you had never heard about this concept of physical fitness, the claim I just made should be mind-blowing. Right? I'm claiming that something like this, simple, repetitive, stupid-looking action, has implication that goes all the way to success, happiness, feeling great, looking good. Right? Mind-blowing stuff. And it is the same with the exercise you just did. Because every time your attention wanders away, you bring it back. It's like doing one bicep curl for the mind, specifically for the prefrontal cortex. If you do a lot of this, you find that your power attention becomes stronger and stronger over time, and eventually you gain mastery over attention, which is how you gain the ability to calm the mind on demand. And that's life-changing. But wait, there's more. There is step 2. Oh, by the way, the book has cartoons like this. Yeah. I cannot write a book about wisdom without about cartoons, so obvious, right? The second step is self-knowledge, developing the type of self-knowledge that leads to self-mastery. Remember we talked about calm and clear mind, and I've been talking about the calmness aspect. I haven't talked about the clarity aspect. So what is a clear mind? Specifically, when you practice a lot of mindfulness, you begin to develop a high-resolution perception into the process of emotion. So what does that mean? So first, what is high-resolution perception? So let me give you an example. This is low resolution. You don't know what this is. If you increase the resolution, you find that, oh, it's some guy trying to hide the recipe of chicken. So increasing resolution gives you useful information. Yeah? It's the same here. When your mind becomes very sharp, you find yourself able to perceive the process of emotion at high resolution on 2 dimensions. The first dimension is spatial, which is the ability to perceive small changes in the process of emotion. The second dimension is temporal, which is the ability to do that in real time, in thin slices of time. And together, among many other things, it allows you, for example, the ability to detect an emotion the moment it is arising, which is when you have most influence over that emotion. But beyond that, there are many other benefits, and I'll just tell you about one. One of the benefits is it's a shift in the way you experience emotion. So let me give you an example. This shift is going from existential to experiential. And you say, what does that mean? So when we experience emotion, we experience it in the existential manner. For example, I say, I am angry, I am happy, I am sad. It is, I am that emotion. That emotion is me. There is no separation. And then as your perception sharpens, you may find a very subtle but very important shift, which is going from I am angry to I am experiencing anger. And that shift is important because it opens up the possibility of something the Zen people call the big sky mind, which is this realization that the mind is like the sky and emotions are like clouds in the sky. And fundamentally, the clouds are not the sky. Therefore, my emotions are not me, and I am not my emotions. And that's important. Why? If it's, for example, if you're stuck in a cycle of depression, that one realization, that one insight, I am not my emotions are not me, that one insight is the first break out of the cycle of depression. So for some people, this one insight is life-changing. Sometimes life and death, that much life-changing. But it gets better. As your practice deepens, as your perception sharpens, sometimes you get another shift, which is, I think, equally significant, which is shifting from experiential to physiological. This is a shift from I am experiencing anger to I'm experiencing anger in my body. Emotions are basically experiences in the body. They are physiological experiences. So why is that important? Let's assume that I hurt my hand, right? If I hurt my hand, I feel pain. And I also know, by the way, if it's painful enough, it takes over all my experience, right? This thing dominates me. However, even though it dominates me, I know I have options. I can ice my hand, I can massage my hand, I can ignore the pain, I can distract myself, I can eat ice cream, right, to distract myself. I can experience it mindfully because I came to some talk where some good-looking Chinese guy talks about mindfulness. See, I keep introducing the stimulus, the intervention. So there are options, and there are options because fundamentally this is simply a phenomenon in my body. Imagine able to perceive the experience of emotion on the same level. This sadness, this horrible feeling, this horrible sadness I'm feeling right now is the same level of pain as the pain in my hand. Not much difference. And once you perceive it that way, this, my friends, is the beginning of mastery over emotions. So again, it's life-changing. Just one example. I mean, this is just one example. And that's only step 2. So there is step 3. Step 3 is, so once you have trained your attention, and then you have self-knowledge that leads to self-mastery, the next step is to train useful mental habits. And when I say useful here, specifically I mean pro-social mental habits. So what do I mean? Shall we try an example? 10 seconds? Okay. Before we do that, let me tell you what it is. One example is a habit of kindness. And the habit of kindness is looking at a human being. And the first thought is, I wish for this person to be happy. I wish for this person to be happy. As the first thought. Why? Because it is a habit. For no other reason than because this is a habit. And the thing about habit is, habit becomes personality. Personality becomes character. Character becomes you. Right? So through creating a habit of kindness, eventually you become a kind person. You become a different person. And the best thing about habits is they're highly trainable. To train a habit, multiple exposure. That's all it takes. Do it a lot, 30 times, 100 times, whatever it is, it becomes a habit. Right? So, let's do this experiment. For 10 seconds, I'd like you to identify 2 human beings in this room. I'm sorry it's a bit dark, but you can still see each other. Identify 2 human beings. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Just think. Just think. I wish for that person to be happy, and I wish for that person to be happy. Okay? You don't, like I say, don't say it out loud. Don't have to go like, No. Just think. Sounds good? Easy? Okay, 10 seconds, beginning now. Thank you. Do you like this experiment, by the way? Yeah? Did you notice that when you were doing this, you were smiling? Right? And that is actually a really important discovery, which is, it turns out that to be on the giving end of a kind thought is intrinsically rewarding. And I think this is true because there's evolutionary reasons behind it. But if it's true, what I just said is true, then, my friends, you may have just discovered one of the secrets to happiness. All other things equal, nothing changes. All you do is just randomly wish for people to be happy. You become happier. Just that alone. Like, don't have to do or think, don't have to do or say anything, just thinking. So, how far can you take this? Some months ago, I was speaking on a Monday evening. I was speaking to people who were working. And I told them, okay, tomorrow is, we did this exercise. I said, okay, tomorrow's a work day, try this. Tomorrow, every hour, spend 10 seconds randomly wishing for 2 people to be happy in the head. So you don't have to say anything out loud, right? So it's not embarrassing. Just think, oh, I wish for that person to be happy, that person, and don't have to put your hand here too. And then that's it, get back to work, right? 10 seconds. That was Monday. So on Wednesday morning, I received an email from a total stranger. And this person told me, she said, I hate my job. I hate coming to work every single day. However, I came to your talk on Monday, I did your homework on Tuesday, And Tuesday was my happiest day in 7 years. Happiest day in 7 years. And what did it take? It took 80 seconds of thinking. Amazing, right? So, can I assign this as homework? Okay. Try this tomorrow. Every hour, wish for 2 people to be happy. See what happens. Okay? And feel free to tell me what happens. I'm ming@google.com. It gets better, right? Besides happiness, it turns out that it is also very good for your career. So there's a study, for example, that showed, in this study, they tried to figure out, they found a population where they could identify the best managers and the worst managers in the population, and they tried to figure out the difference between them. And in this study, they could only identify one difference, which is affection. It turns out that the top performing managers love people and want to be loved, which was surprising to me. I mean, I would think that to be successful in the working world, especially as a manager, you need to be no, I can't say the A word on TV in front of young people. You need to be a jerk. Right? Because you need to get things done, right? You choose to be liked or to be effective. Turns out, the research says that you choose both at once. You choose to be liked and effective. Why? There's a very simple explanation, which is all other things equal. The more your people love you, the harder they work for you. The harder they work for you, the more successful you are. It's as simple as that. Blew my mind, right? So it turns out that choosing to be good is good for your career as a leader. And you might go like, yeah, it's kind of nice. Where's the limit? Is there any job where this is not true? Where being a jerk is important? Yes? Okay, I'll take questions later. You know the answer? I'll come back to that later. He said CEO at Apple. Notice I'm not commenting. Worse than that, which is the military. Right? The military has to solve a problem that no civilian organization ever has to solve, which is how do you send young people to die? Right? All of military structure is designed to optimize solving that one problem. How do you send young people to die? Therefore, you do not expect successful military leaders to be nice people. You expect them to be the opposite of nice. So this has been studied, by the way. There was a study published in 1988, figuring out what makes the best naval commanders in the US Navy. And the best naval commanders were described in these terms: positive, outgoing, expressive, dramatic, warm, sociable, appreciative, trustful, gentle, and so on. In other words, they are nice people. And the title of this study was Nice Guys Finish First. Oh, by the way, in 1988, they're all guys. So nice guys finish first. Even in the military, the nice people are the most effective as leaders. I gave this talk to a bunch of top naval commanders in the US Navy. Some percentage were Navy SEALs, some percentage were Top Gun. A few of them were both Navy SEALs and Top Gun. So they were like literally the best of the best of the best in the room. So I presented this, and I asked them, is it true for you? And they said, yes, it's true for them. Right? So even in the Navy, even for Top Gun, even for Navy SEALs, the nice people are the best leaders. Therefore, nobody in any civilian organization has an excuse to be an asshole. And here's some nice guys in the military. So that's it, my friends. 3 easy steps to training emotional intelligence. I've been running this class in Google since 2007. The feedback I keep getting is, this class changed my life. Imagine coming to work, taking a class, and then it changes your life. Then imagine being on the giving end of that experience. So that's why I go to work. I've also created, with the blessing of Google, created this institute called the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. You notice I named this organization SIYLI. It's pronounced as silly. By the way, this is true. We hope that eventually you can raise enough money to build a university. So we're going to call it Silly U. Really. So last part of this presentation before we go to Q&A, which is, why do I do this? What's an engineer doing? Like emotional intelligence and so on, right? I had one simple dream, very small dream. All I wanted to do was to create the conditions for world peace in my lifetime. That's all. World peace in my lifetime. And it started in 2003. I was taking a walk outside the Google campus, which back then was a tiny cluster of small buildings. I was taking a walk, and I had a moment of clarity. I had a moment where I knew what I want to do for the rest of my life. And for the rest of my life, I want to create the conditions for world peace in my lifetime. World peace in my lifetime. That's all I want to do. How do I do that? I figured it out. The way I wanted to do that was to scale inner peace, inner joy, and compassion worldwide. Because if these three qualities are worldwide, then we have the conditions for world peace in our lifetimes. How do I do that? I figured that out. I figured out that the only way I knew how to do that was to align peace, joy, compassion with success and profits. Right? Because if I were to go around the world talking about goodness, peace, joy, compassion, what would the reaction be? Yay! Everybody goes home and nothing changes. However, if I were to go around the world talking about success and profits, this will help you become successful. This will make you a good leader. This will help you increase your profits with peace, joy, compassion being the necessary and unavoidable side effect of the training. Then it will spread. Then with the conditions for world peace in our lifetimes. How do we do that? And then I figured it out. By the way, it took me a few months on every step. So in overall, it took me like years to figure this out. But eventually I figured it out, which is emotional intelligence, EQ. Because everybody knows EI or EQ, good for my career, good for the team, good for profits. And nobody knew how to train it. And me being a mindfulness practitioner, I knew how to train it in ways where inner peace, inner joy, and compassion are the unavoidable outcomes. And therefore, the curriculum was born, and it became a New York Times bestseller, and everything else was history. So, my friends, I hope this was useful to you, and I hope that together, we will create the conditions for world peace in our lifetimes. Thank you. Yes.
Hello. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I myself have had a mindful practice and in many aspects of my life, and I am finding a success in my work relations and my home, my life, my family. But I have found lately that my ego is getting in the way because I'm so successful and I handle so many things and these crises at work and all of this. And so my question is, how do I remove ego from the equation?
That's a good question. Thank you. I want to suggest to not remove ego. However, or instead, I want to suggest allow ego to temper itself down. And there are two ways to do this. The first way is compassion. Compassion, not for yourself, yes, and also for other people. And the reason compassion works, there are three components to compassion. The first component is the affective component. I feel for you. The second component is the cognitive component. I understand you. The third component is motivational. I want to help you. If you have all these three components of compassion, which you practice a lot, what happens is eventually you start to, the ego, the self-importance start to downregulate itself, right? Because now it's all about you. It's all about service. And then eventually it beat us down. That's the first one. In the context of religion, which has a similar effect, something somebody said I found very beautiful. This person, Brother David, he's a Franciscan monk, and the way he described it was so beautiful. He says, at first there is self, and there is no other. And for him, other refers to God. But you can think of other as the universe or the greatest good or greatest self, whatever. So at first, there's only self, there's no other. And then later on, there is self and there is other. And then later on, self and other are one. There's no difference. And finally, there's no self, there's only other. So if there's a devotion to the greater good, to compassion, it has a similar effect. Eventually, there is no self, there's only other. So that's the first way. There's a second way, which is even deeper and harder. This is, and by the way, this goes into the realm of advanced topic, if you don't mind. Does anybody mind advanced topics? So this is a keyword, by the way. Every time I say advanced topic, it means that everything I say is BS. Until you prove it for yourself, or until you verify it, or you could falsify it for yourself. If you verify it, then it's true. Otherwise, it's all BS. Okay? So I want to suggest this. I want to suggest that ego comes entirely from identity. And identity is entirely created by the mind. And there's a very simple way to prove that, which is, there are two. One simple, one not so simple. The simple way to prove that is, at night when you sleep, you dream. Sometimes, when you in a dream, you are an entirely different person. You have a different identity. So between the sleep and the dream, you drop your identity and you pick up a new one. So the identity was entirely mind-created. So that's the simple proof. The hard proof is which is why this is advanced, by the way. The hard proof is when your meditation practice becomes so strong that you're able to see that process happening as it's happening. You're able to see the mind letting go of identity before it creates a new one, and stay in that state and see that there's only the observer, and the observer has no identity. And in that state, there is no ego. And that, I think, is the solution. Thank you.
My question is, I think the phrase emotional intelligence might make some people pause because it sounds kind of controlling. There's kind of this notion that if I'm controlling my emotions, if I'm choosing to be happy, I'll never be as truly happy or truly as passionate as I would be naturally. And there's something kind of romantic about letting yourself be tossed in the waves of life. Or maybe you could say that the great artists of our time couldn't have created the things they made if they weren't emotional train wrecks to an extent. Do you think that we lose out on anything by becoming emotionally intelligent and by living mindfully, or is it 100% positive?
I'll give you an analogy, which is the analogy of sailing. Emotional intelligence is not controlling the weather. It's not controlling the sea. It is the ability to navigate the ship skillfully in the weather. Right? So, for example, when you have experiences of anger and so on, that's sometimes uncontrollable, or when it arises, it's not always that you can. Sometimes you have the ability to turn it off. Sometimes you just have to ride it. Sometimes you have to react or respond skillfully. For example, if you gain the ability to detect anger as it's arising, but you don't have the ability to turn it off, or because it's too late to turn it off. or it's too intense, then what you can do is you can excuse yourself and go to the restroom, right? Or, the next thing I'm going to say, I'm going to regret. So don't say anything for 10 seconds. So you have the ability to respond intelligently. And that is, I think, that is the key point, emotional intelligence. It's not controlling the weather. It's skillful navigation. Thank you. Let me see, I may have a comment on that. Skillful navigation gives you one thing, which is, it means that your emotional life is not stale, right? It's not like uniform, it's always happy all the time, right? It is that there's highs and lows of normal life. However, it doesn't completely overwhelm you all the time because you know how to skillfully respond. Sometimes you can control, sometimes you can respond intelligently, sometimes you just allow things to go wrong. And there is a certain amount of intelligence around this. Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you, Meng. So my question is, do you think there are any consequences, either positive or negative, from disconnecting a mindfulness practice from the spiritual roots from which it came?
This is slightly nuanced. I do not think there's a problem with disconnecting from a spiritual tradition. However, this is really important. I think that mindfulness cannot be practiced in the absence of kindness and compassion. This is really important for at least two reasons. The first reason is fairly obvious to me. In my tradition, which I'm trained in the Buddhist tradition, there is such a thing as unskillful concentration or wrong concentration, mika samadhi, for those of you who speak the language, or micha samadhi, sorry. And this is wrong concentration. And this is concentration without kindness and compassion. For example, you're concentrating on how to kill somebody, right? Concentrating how to cause harm, right? And so on. So therefore, it has to be balanced with the moderating force of kindness and compassion so that the concentration, the mindfulness, is always directed in a good way. Which is why SIY includes kindness and compassion. We call it social skills, but essentially a lot of it is kindness and compassion. There's one other reason, which is more important, I think. Maybe not more important, but it shows up in your practice. Which is, I think, let's put it this way. I think that the third most important sustaining factor of meditation practice is joy. Because if you are able to, when you can access joy consistently during sitting, then it sustains your practice, right? Because that's why you sit, it's joyful, right? But that's third most important. There's something even more important than that, in my opinion, which is the willingness to witness failure and suffering in self calmly, right? This horrible person, all his pain, all his suffering, all his failure, the ability and the willingness to sit there and look at this. That's powerful. And that creates the conditions for joy. But there's something even more important than that, which is self-directed kindness. Because it's that kindness that enables the ability and the willingness to witness this horrible person. And therefore, kindness, I think, is the most important factor of meditation. So, thank you. Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
I had to speak in public. I'm kind of nervous, but
You're very good looking.
I'm a very shy person, you can tell. Yes.
I say you're very good looking, by the way.
Very good looking. Oh, thank you. How many exposures of that you got? Yes, 5 exposures. That's all it took for this person. Yeah.
Roughly 10 months ago, I started meditating every day, about 20, 25 minutes before I go to sleep. And I noticed some benefit. I'd be sitting in class, like, oh, I don't want to be here, and I would take that breath, those, 10 seconds to breathe. And things would get better, just a little more relaxed. But as I, kept going, 6, 7, 8 months into it, I started to feel like those benefits of meditating plateau, and I wasn't seeing any sort of change. I wasn't any more skilled or adept at this attention, focusing on the present moment. So then I stopped, but took like a little break.
Right.
I think I found myself in the moment, trying to be in the moment, and because I was focused so much on being in the moment, my thoughts were scattered.
Right.
What would you say, or how do you overcome or stop the break through the plateau?
Right. So to clarify, the benefits plateau, but it didn't revert, right? It just stayed, right? Okay. This is normal, and it's good. So let me explain the mechanism behind this. There are actually two ways to explain this, and they're both actually the same thing. The first is, do you do weights, by the way? Do you do any form of exercise? Yeah, I do some. You may notice the same effect. Right? You may notice that when you start doing weights, you find that you can progress very quickly. And then after a while, you cannot do more weights for a very long time. You cannot increase. You plateau. And then after a few months of plateauing, suddenly you can do more. Right? So this effect is also happening in sports. And a good way to think about this is ice on the lake. Ice on the lake. So the lake is frozen, right? And then as the weather warms up, what happens is the underlying ice structure starts to melt. So it starts to break a little bit here, a little bit there. And then eventually the whole structure becomes so unstable, the first person to step on it, the whole ice will collapse, right? So if you look at it from top down, from a casual perspective, it looks as if nothing happened to the ice for months, and then suddenly it broke. But actually what was happening was the underlying structure was changing, which you cannot see. And then suddenly all the changes reach a critical mass that causes an observable effect. And it's the same with a meditation practice. It's plateauing because the changes are underlying and they are not perceivable. And trust that if you continue doing that, one day you will reach a critical mass and suddenly you find that there's a sudden improvement. And in Zen, there's a word for it. It's called gradual effort, sudden enlightenment. Right? And in the Zen tradition, you see this a lot. Enlightenment is always sudden. It's like suddenly there's like a moment of insight or something. Or suddenly they can sit for 3 hours without moving. And it's because of that effect. It's a gradual effort. Thank you. I see. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Meng. I'm very grateful that you made the trip here. I'm very grateful to USC for initiating this movement here at campus. Yes. 2 years after I graduated, too late, but anyway, thank you. I think it will be fantastic. Your book also changed my life. I work in the nonprofit sector, and I try to introduce your book to some of my colleagues, and I'm sorry I didn't bring more of them with me today, but to use it as a way to prevent secondary trauma for people that are in the humanitarian sector. And I wanted to hear from you, the same way you've been impulsing this movement in the private sector, can you talk about what you've been doing also for the nonprofit sector? I know you went and spoke at UN, but how can we access the Search Inside Yourself Institute when we have so many organizations in the business of passion, but not with a lot of funding to participate at the institutes? Thank you.
In my opinion, I could be wrong about this. My opinion is that introducing SIY into the profit sector and the non-profit sector, probably the process is about the same. Not much change. The big difference is that the non-profit sector have less money. And so the solution is this. So we're training teachers, and as part of the training, we are asking our teachers to teach either to non-profits or to the underprivileged population. And eventually, we hope we'll reach everybody, because my plan is to train 1 million teachers in 20 years. Yeah, and I can give you the math if you want. I give you numbers. Numbers are we trained 30 this year, and if we can get some number like 3, 4, or 5 to train the next class, then we can double every year. If we double every year, every 10 years, what's 2 to the power of 10? 1,024. 2 to the power of 20 is 1,024 squared. Therefore, in 20 years, we can train 1 million times, which is 30 million. And all I'm asking for from my staff is 1 million. That's all. So hopefully, by then, we can bring this everywhere.
Hi, Meng. I really enjoyed your talk, and I really appreciate the work you do.
How about my good looks?
Definitely powered by your good looks. I wanted to touch on your work that you do with Silly, and I was wondering what would be the best ways for students like us to get involved with your work there and help out, possibly.
Good question. I don't know yet. And the reason I don't know is because I'm merely the pretty face of the operation. I don't do real work. Right? My people do all the real work. And so I think the real answer for now is to explore this with my staff. Yeah. Email me at lindsay@silly.org.
Like, is that Lindsay with an E?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, but thanks for asking the question. I love that you want to be involved. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, thanks for your talk. I was wondering, how can you best evaluate where you are in the process, and if you have any...
Process of what, sorry?
Of practicing this, and if there are notable milestones you want to point out.
Yes, I think so. So again, we come to advanced topics, right? Same rules. Everything I say is BS until you prove it for yourself to be correct. Okay? If you're willing to entertain that, then I can give you some of my opinions. I think that practice of meditation can be classified into three big buckets or three pillars, depending on how you look at it. The pillars are calming the mind. And for those who are interested in technical terms, the technical term is shamatha. The second leg is developing insights into self. And the technical term is vipassana. And the third leg, basically kindness and compassion. And the technical term is Brahma Vihara. So these three legs. Then the question becomes, how do you know you're very good? Like, what is the marker? And in my opinion, there are markers. So shamatha, calming the mind. When you're very good at this, under normal sitting situation, so nothing very stressful is happening, you didn't get fired from a job, and so on, right? Normal situation, in the air-conditioned room, you're just sitting. You can bring your mind to a very calm state between 95 to 100%, no, 90 to 95% of the time, not 100%, 90-95%, you can calm the mind on demand. In a stressful situation, the meeting room, everybody's panicking, or the boss shouting at you, or the CHP, the traffic police stopping you, that stressful situation, you are able to calm the mind on demand at least half the time. So for me, that is the standard of being very good on calmness. Do you want to know about mastery? No, let's stick to very good. Mastery is kind of even harder. So that's one. Insight. To me, very good is the ability to keep a clear mind no matter what's happening, right? Under tremendous stress, even when the emotions are overwhelming to the degree that you totally lose control. Even when you lose control, you always have clarity. And the clarity is, these thoughts are not me. These emotions are not me. All the clarity is still there. You never completely lose it. So for me, that is that's under stressful condition. Under normal, controlled environment, just sitting, the bar for being very good is the ability to hear your own heartbeat. Right? You sit there, and on demand, 3 or 4 seconds into your sit, you can sense your heartbeat in the body. And that is an indicator of the maturity of the training of the insula, this part of the brain. The Brahma Viharas, kindness and compassion. For me, being very good is that under normal conditions, nothing's too stressful and so on, you look at any human being, 100% of the time, you look at any human being, you think, I wish for this person to be happy. 100%. And under stressful situations, right, somebody very unpleasant, maybe your boss, your in-law or something, gives you a really hard time, about at least half the time, even in that situation, you can think, this person is doing this because she's suffering. I can see how she's suffering, and some percentage of the time, meaningful percentage of the time, you can respond with kindness and compassion. So for me, those are the 3 markers. And for SIY instructors, this is what I demand of them. Does it make sense, by the way? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I guess we're out of time. Thank you so much for being here. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.